again, everybody. Lance Russell and Dave Brown right along ringside. By golly, we're about ready to go with more big action.
Thank you very much, and welcome to Georgia Championship Wrestling. I'm Gordon Solie, your host, and we have quite an hour in store for us.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Championship Wrestling at ringside. This is Vince McMahon, along with wrestling's only living legend, Bruno Sammartino.
Welcome to this week's edition of Mid-South Wrestling Television. I'm your host, Floyd Creatchman, another outstanding card.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Regional Rasslin podcast, where we talk the territories. I am Ray Russell, and this week we go back in time to 1985 in the Memphis territory, and in order to do that properly, we've got to bring the Tennessee man himself back on. I don't know that he's necessarily in Tennessee a lot, but he certainly knows the territory well. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only, here he is, Mr. Gene Jackson. Welcome back to the program, brother.
Good to be back. It's been a while, and I would like to say I've been fired up to get back and talk some Memphis wrestling, but man, we're kind of in a weird holding pattern here, but we're going to have fun with it. And then on the other side of this, there's some more fun to be had in 1985, but whew, we've hit a rough patch, man.
Yeah, you know, I don't remember the context of the conversation I recently had with one of the patrons, but they were talking about how dreadful something had been getting. I think it was the Coliseum videos that we're doing as far as what we have to pick from in 1988. And I said, You know how the old saying goes, before it gets better, it always gets worse. And that's kind of the situation we're here in the summer of 1985. It's can't get much worse, I don't think, but we're gonna see how it plays out this week, guys. But before we do that, as we always do, Gene, we go back to last week in the Memphis territory, where we saw the debut of manager extraordinaire. No, wait, I believe he was the #1 sports agent, or was he just an attorney? I'm very confused at this point, but of course I'm referencing one Leslie Floyd Creatchman III.
I guess he's finally caving into what they want now, because at one point on this show, I don't remember which promo it was, because he's on here more than once, if I remember correctly. But at one point he says, I'm a sports agent who is also legally trained, or something to that effect. Basically, we're blending both gimmicks now. He wanted to be a lawyer. They wanted to be a sports agent. So now he is a sports agent / lawyer. And boy, he seems like the kind of sharp guy that could go to school for both those and pull it off with great success. But look at him. He's come in the door with a brand new guy that we haven't seen. I mean, sure, he was the Witchdoctor champion or whatever the fuck it was, but, you know, he's already the new Southern Heavyweight champion. So
as we will find out, absolutely. At the top, well, we talked about the Monday Mid-South Coliseum results, so we know BOTA'S is indeed the new Southern Heavyweight champion, but we're going to hear more about that later here in today's edition of the program, because not only did we get Creatchman's debut, it didn't end there, guys. We were also treated, as Gene just pointed out, to an uncomfortably long vignette, footage of a man known only as BOTA, the Witchdoctor, a.k.a. the Master of Fire. I guess if you can be a sports agent and an attorney, you can be a Witchdoctor and a Master of Fire as well.
Do you imagine that he's got like a degree hanging on his wall that says he is, in fact, a Master of Fire? If anybody ever calls him into question, he's got his witch doctorate on one side of the wall, and on the other side, he has his Master of Fire degree. And, you know, I'm sure his parents probably gave him a hard time. They're like, look, what are you going to do? What the hell are you going to do being a witch doctor and being a Master of Fire? What is that going to get you? Well, he showed him what it's going to get him. It's going to make him a main event wrestling star here in Memphis in 1985.
Well, we're going to see how many weeks he main events, as apparently BOTA, in order to become a witch doctor, remember the story that Creatchman told us last week, BOTA murdered another witch doctor on his native island of Maori, which, by the way, is not a real thing. Maoris actually are people, indigenous Polynesians of the New Zealand mainland, I'll have you know. But in Leslie Floyd's mind, he invented a new island over there off the coast of New Zealand, much like he clearly invented his own backstory for his own character as well. A for effort, Floyd. But it didn't take long for the 5-foot witch doctor to showcase his stuff, defeating Jerry Lawler for the Southern title Monday night. We're going to see more of BOTA here, right here live in the studio this week. I can't wait.
Yeah, the Master of Fire being turned loose in the studio, so no telling what's going to happen. You get a man in there who's a Master of Fire, and he's waving it all around. I mean, 'cause that video, that fire was all over the place.
It
but,
was
you know,
all over the place.
yeah, he killed the man to become the Witchdoctor champion. So take that, Cactus Jack, Terry Funk.
Yeah.
This man's a real death match
King of the
legend.
death, bang bang, absolutely. And,
Suck it, Cardona.
hell of a AI, you know, with the fire flames, you know, all over the screen back in 1985. It's amazing. He's got flames on his tits, for God's sake. I mean, we'll talk about that later in the program as well. But it's still didn't end there. Live on TV or tape, depending on your city last week, we witnessed the Southern Tag Team titles change hands when the bloody Sheepherders stole the bloody win from the bloody Fabs, bloodying Steve Keirn in the bloody process.
Wow, you've got to work that into the title of this week's episode. It's like the best bloody episode of the bloody Memphis 85 show or something. But
bloody wanker.
Yeah, you know, I'm speaking, not to circle back to Creatchman again, but, you know, I'm surprised Jonathan Boyd didn't come out there and school him on New Zealand islands and straighten him out on that. But, you know, then again, he did come out and speak on their behalf for the tag team championship win. So I guess he gets a pass for all that. But, yeah, the bloody Sheepherders are here, and the Fabs are literally bloody because of it.
That's right. They take out Steve Keirn last week on TV. So Stan Lane, vowing revenge for the injured Keirn, made that epic call, that person-to-person call to Jackie Fargo, no doubt sitting on his couch waiting for that phone call, as Fargo came out of retirement for the 17th time this year and the 439th time overall. It was Stan Lane and Jackie Fargo exacting revenge at the Mid-South Coliseum, but getting DQ'd in the process as they battled the Sheepherders Monday night. No doubt Jackie Fargo losing his cool there.
There were guys on the WWF roster in 1985 that didn't have as many matches as Jackie Fargo did in retirement in Memphis. It's so pretty crazy. But, yeah, I would love to have heard that phone call. Hey, Jackie, I'm going to need you to come up here and fill in for Steve. They bloodied him up, and I'm going to need a partner. Jackie don't like getting off that couch and not playing golf and stuff. But, hey, if Stan or Steve calls, he's bound. He has to go, and he's on his way.
Well, I think Stan Lane being involved had a little help. So, you know, it's got to be rats around whenever Stan Lane's around, and that's got to be a good time, I'd have to imagine, at the end of the day.
Come over here and sit on this couch for a minute, Pally.
There's room for two. Make it three. Well, even though we have the Sheepherders and the PYT are still here, apparently Billy Travis and Ron Sexton, for now, are still a thing here in the Do we really need three heel tag teams in the Memphis territory at the same time? All of them, they're trying to push all three?
I feel like Eddie Marlin's like, Tom, they won't leave. Like, I try to not book them, but then they show up and somebody no-shows and end up having to use them. I mean, I can't get rid of Sexton and Travis, so here they are.
Well, you know, Tom Renesto, I'm sure he has an affinity for heel tag teams, right? That was pretty much his entire career as a bolo and then later as an assassin. So maybe he wants to make one of these teams, you know, get over fun, if you will, to that next level, I mean. And, well, the Sheepherders are the champions now. We've seen what the PYT can do. Travis and Sexton, not quite there yet. I don't know if they'll ever get there. We'll have to wait and see. But you talk about trying to run guys out of town. Oh, man. Jay Youngblood continuing to do jobs to everyone in sight, even including the returning Phil Hickerson. And, yes, even the spoiler, Frank Morel. When you do a job to not just Frank Morel, but the spoiler version of Frank Morel, you know the writing's on the wall. Talk about trying to force someone to quit the territory. But you know what, Gene? Apparently, it finally worked. Frank Morel was the last straw for the engine. Jay Youngblood gone from Memphis.
Wow, even Jay Youngblood. It was starting to look like he had no rock bottom. And
right.
I mean, because you had to figure that two or three of these, you know, when they went to him, they're like, this is the night he quits. Guaranteed.
Right.
He's not going to go out there and put over Phil Hickerson. And then he does it, and then he's like, spoiled Frank Morel? Like, all right, I got to go. Of course, truth be told, he probably lost his hookup for, you know, his extracurricular activities was probably more of the truth, but we'll say it was because of losing to Frank Morel.
Well, as we move into the month of July, we know there's only a few months left on this earth for Jay Youngblood, sadly, and unfortunately, you know, his demise is around the corner. But he had this very uneventful run, and it's really sad how far he fell, especially when Memphis is in need of talent. But Jay Youngblood is so far removed from the talent that he was just a few years ago when he was teaming with Steamboat that, I mean, he didn't even work out here in Memphis. Not that he was given much of an opportunity, but I don't know how much they could trust him.
No, and if Botchamania had been a thing in 1985, him and Jerry Oski would have been all over that shit. Especially their most famous one.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. Speaking of Jerry Oski, we got something fun on him this week as we move off now, guys, to no, wait, there's more. I got one more piece of business. How could I forget? Let us not forget the ongoing saga of one referee Tom Branch. What's with the stupid tree names? As I looked at his name, Tom Branch, Speedy Tall Tree. What's with these fucking names here in this Renesto family?
There's definitely a theme going on there, isn't it? Very odd. It was, speaking of Renesto, Doug Gilbert was on the Briscoe and Bradshaw podcast this past week.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it came up. I just heard a clip of it where it was said, who's the worst booker that you could name?
Ooh.
And Doug, without hesitation, was like, Tom Renesto. And Jerry Briscoe would not co-sign it. But I guess Jerry didn't really know of this Memphis stretch and some of his later stuff. He just knew more about California, and I guess maybe he was in Florida for a bit. And so Briscoe never would co-sign it. JBL was never around him, so he didn't really comment. But Doug was adamant, like, well, look, I know you think he's a nice guy. Maybe he was a great worker, but he was horrible as a booker. He nearly killed Memphis, and they were just like, well, okay. And so they just moved on from there.
Wow, that's awesome. I got to go try to find that little area of the conversation because I'd be very curious. But you're right, because Briscoe knew of Tom Renesto. He knew of his past, and he was successful booking. Remember, he was with Ann Gunkel there during the Georgia War. Even he was the booker there. So they were pretty successful for that first year or so before Barnett comes back over and everybody starts helping the NWA side of things. But no, absolutely. Renesto had success at one point, but it was long gone by here. I mean, we, over in the LA portion, me and Vandal Drummond have talked about, and, Vandal will defend him to some degree because look who he had to work with there. But you could argue, I mean, you should be able to make something entertaining or make sense out of this. Even if the guys aren't over or the guys aren't worth a shit, at least the programming, the product, if you will, should make sense. And I'm just not seeing a lot of that.
To me, it mirrors the George Scott situation, 4 years later in WCW, where at that point in time, the business was changing so much and the focus on, television and pay-per-views and all that, that guys like that just kind of had an expiration date on them. And, Renesto did kind of the same thing that Scott ended up doing. He's started bringing these old guys, like Cyclops and all these different people. And then, Scott did the same thing, Iron Sheik and all these dudes he was bringing in. Luckily, I mean, he rehashed Steamboat and Flair, but luckily those guys could still go. But a lot of the people he tried to push, just no, the time had passed. But I always think it's a really big parallel between those two.
I could totally see that. Both guys are from the old book, and I would say Scott had more success than Renesto as a booker, but I mean, he had all those guys to work with in the Mid-Atlantic as well. But at the same time, yeah, absolutely. The 80s, it was long gone. Of course, now Renesto seems to be more willing to work the gimmickry and things of that nature versus George Scott, and how he handled things there with that show on, what was it, Monday night or Tuesday, whatever they were calling the Clash. They couldn't call it the Clash. We couldn't promote the fucking show, but we had to promote the fucking show, so we didn't give it a name. And I always loved that when I covered that on the Grenade. It was that show on Monday night or whatever day it was absolutely ridiculous. And that was the demise, right? I mean, that was the demise.
Oh yeah, I mean, you got a damn Superdome that looks like there's been a bomb scare called in, and they've barely pushed it on TV. So the ratings were bad, the house was bad, and there was no denying at that point that he was in over his head, that his booking days were long gone.
Well, and just before we go back into the Memphis thing, because we don't have a whole lot of notes this week, guys, a little spoiler there on that. But one more thing in regards to that, just quickly, is that, he didn't want to promote the show because he'd still living in like you said, the past. You want to sell everything on the house shows. TV is free. You're not trying to give away a whole lot, and you want people to come to your house show to see Steamboat and Flair versus your TV to see Steamboat and Flair. The problem is the guy that owns the company also owns that fucking channel. So when you try to prevent people from watching the fucking channel that he has commercials and advertising in, I mean, absolutely fucking stupid. And that's why George Scott ended up where he ended up that day, which was fired and in the old bread line or what have you, and never to be seen again as far as booking goes anyways. But that's a fun time to deep dive back in there. And I know you've been talking about that a lot recently in some of your other ventures. So very fun. But unfortunately, now we go back to summer of 85 Memphis as we head back to June 29th this week for more Memphis wrestling action. And here we are at WMC TV5 Studios, Memphis, Tennessee, CWA Championship Wrestling. In fact, this is Memphis by the venue, but unfortunately, this is the Evansville, Indiana broadcast. And I think we've discussed this many episodes ago, Gene, but I'll let you discuss again, explain to everybody what how the old bicycle worked here with the wrestling in Memphis.
Well, essentially, excuse me, you had Memphis that was live, and you did that card on Monday night. And then the rest of the week, as you went to Evansville, Louisville, Nashville, and around the Horn, they were a week behind. So they would go, and that made for some interesting things that happen. You know, like you'd have people turn on each other on Saturday morning on TV for Monday night, get in the car, drive straight to Nashville, and tag together, because in Nashville, the turn hasn't happened yet. That'll happen next week. And there were instances, like I talked to a guy the other day who was a fan back then, and they lived in Memphis, they followed Memphis, but they had business, like his dad had business in Nashville, and they went to Nashville like, hey, Memphis Wrestling, they have a show over here on Saturday nights. And so they go to the show on Saturday night, and he's like, I don't know, I think he was like 8 or 9 years old, whatever he was. And his dad had been telling him all along, watch TV, like, this stuff's fake. It's all, it's all a bunch of bullshit. Well, they go over there and they're watching the card that they saw advertised for Memphis last week, and titles are changing that had already changed on Saturday morning's TV, and it completely just fractured his mind when it came to wrestling.
I think I read just recently, it was summer before this time period in 1985, that Jerry Jarrett had been basically put on the spot, is wrestling fake? And he didn't say yes, but he basically said that the outcomes were, I don't want to even use the word predetermined, but this is more of a spectacle than it is an actual competition. And, but I mean, to have these towns in the same state, and this wasn't the only territory with towns that close together, but you're always taking that chance, when the tapes were bicycled. And Memphis was not the only territory with the tapes being bicycled around the loop. I mean, we've heard tell us some, and even in Memphis, I believe some cities would be 3 weeks behind at times in regards to the story they're telling. You'd have to remember what poor Mike Sharp got all caught up in that. We found out at the top of the year, but no, we go back here, and this is what we're going to see here in the Evansville feed, is that Memphis, the live version is 90 minutes. The Memphis they get 90 minutes of wrestling. The syndicated version that was sent out to all these other cities was only 60 minutes. And they would do their best to try to take out everything that was mentioning the Mid-South Coliseum and things of that nature. But sometimes matches get bumped, promos get bumped, maybe even an angle gets bumped. And I'm hoping that that's what happens this week, because this is a rough patch, man. There's not a lot to be had here on this week of TV.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, me and Brian Tremler are doing some 87 stuff for Patreon, and we've got a handful of Memphis episodes, but most all of it's either like Evansville or Louisville. So you have to look at because we like to do it like we do the USWA show. We want to go over the card from Monday night, because that's the results we have. So we have to pick a different week, pick the week, the following week to do of Evansville, but then read off the Memphis card. It gets convoluted, but that's really the only way to do it at that point. And last year, while we were doing 1993, I finally stopped doing it, because you would read the Nashville card before we do the Monday night card. And usually they were just exactly alike, but towards the later in the year, as people were quitting over money, and they were bringing in these WWF guys who weren't necessarily doing the loop, the Memphis show and the bicycle show would look a lot different. They would have to fill in, they would have to cut more studio footage than they normally do, and they'd have to plug in other matches, old matches or Coliseum matches, something to fill that space, because they weren't getting all. Some of the towns got some of the WWF guys, but they didn't get the bigger one. Like, needless to say, Vince McMahon wasn't sitting ringside in Evansville, Indiana.
Right.
So their TV looked a little different.
Well, very interesting. Yeah, I can only imagine when, you're not going to be able to promote these WWF guys, even though it would be great to have them on the TV programming. You can't really sell the matches they're involved in at the Coliseum because they're not going to be there when it comes to Evansville and things of that nature. So that's a rough go. But here in 85, they don't have that problem. They can barely get enough guys to work a card, much less guys who there's overlapping here. But we're going to see what happens this week, as even though this would have aired in Evansville a week later, this is actually taking place June 29th in Memphis, and it's Lance and Dave right along ringside.
Yowza!
And straight to those music videos of these stars appearing on today's program, set to the tune of Tears for Fears, Everybody Wants to Rule the World. And normally I'd say that's a really weird choice for a wrestling song, but then you look at the names involved here in the video: Jerry Lawler, Bill Dundee, Terry Taylor, and it kind of makes sense. These are guys that definitely wanted to be on top during this era.
Yeah, to circle back to something real quick that popped in my head right as I was talking about the videos. I know we've made fun of it on here, and we made fun of it a lot on 93, where Lawler would come out and do like this hard sell for the Coliseum.
Yeah.
And then sometimes he'd come back out, and sometimes it'd just be plugging a softball game or whatever, but he would, come out and just kind of do a generic promo. And we'd be like, why is he coming out here 2 and 3 times and he's fired up for the one and he's not in the other? I'm guessing that was so you could have Lawler on these other shows when his opponent, when Bret Hart or, Giant Gonzalez or whoever isn't coming to Evansville and Nashville, they've still got a Lawler promo to plug in there, but it's not going to be him out there yelling about Bret Hart. So I guess that's some of that too. And another thing I wanted to mention is kind of fun. Now that I'm the full-time play-by-play guy for EPW, I do the opening. And so now, as a tribute to Lance Russell, I always say, Gene and Joey right along ringside here for EPW Wrestling is just my little homage to the great Lance Russell.
I love it. Well, I got B there for Freddie Miller, so I'm digging it, man. Sounds like a great time, man. Looking forward to catching some of that. I haven't seen any of that yet, but I'm looking forward to it now that you've taken over.
I'll send you some links sometime.
So, yeah, absolutely. Talking about Everybody Wants to Rule the World, Gene Jackson taking over the play-by-play world. And, we talked about Lawler and Dundee, Terry Taylor, top stars, but there was also Jerry Oski shown here, BOTA, the Witchdoctor, Jerry Jarrett and Tojo Yamamoto supposedly here this week, Sheepherders, the Fabs. Well, I wrote this could be misleading based on some of the names I see that are supposedly here this week on TV, but we do it again with the video. We spoil both Terry Taylor and Bill Dundee getting involved. Now, how involved, we'll have to wait and see. Again, very misleading as we go off to our very first music video, but not our last this week. It's Tojo and Jerry Jarrett set to Willie Nelson's Old Fords and a Natural Stone. I don't really know what that has to do. I guess Jerry Jarrett would pick out his own music, I would imagine.
Some of the videos on this week's show, particularly the music choices, we'll talk about another one later that was even more, but like just such an odd, like, why would you set a wrestling music video to this song? Or I can't wait to get to the other one. But just very odd choices. It's not, it just doesn't fit.
It's not because it's like, well, let's play one of their shittier songs or lesser known songs. That way we don't get hit as hard. They were playing whatever they felt like. We already heard Tears for Fears here at the top of the program. So this is just by choice, whoever's making these decisions.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That was a song that Jerry Jarrett wanted apparently. And that's what we got. And the first couple of times that did that when we were doing these shows, I thought if the music first started and it sounded like it was 100 years old or something, I'm like, is this one of them deals where like YouTube has, pulled out the original song and plugged in some random, and then you realize like, no, I remember that song from, when I was 4 years old or whatever. Strange choices. Well,
not only do we get a music video of the duo, we see them in the ring, Jerry Jarrett, Tojo teaming up to take on Jerry Bryant and the Avenger. And boy, is Jerry Bryant revved and ready to go, bouncing around the ring, kind of pissing off his opponents. And God bless Jerry Jarrett out here with his 1972 sparkly, shiny jacket. Jerry Bryant rocking a Michael Jackson looking jacket here in 1985, I'll have you know. Heck of a bumper as the match gets going. I wrote here in my notes for the Avenger, the masked man seems to know what he's doing in there. Again, some of these masked guys, I feel like they're like retired wrestlers or guys that can't get work anymore. They don't necessarily look the part. So they shove them in these masks because some of them seem to know what they're doing out here. As he even makes Jarrett look good, which hasn't been a thing here in 1985. Followed by Tojo tagging in with the big chop. Got to get the win in just 1 minute and 10 seconds. I should point out, after jumping around the ring, spry Jerry Bryant never bothers to tag in, though he vows to find himself a new partner for revenge.
Yeah, Bryant looked like he was auditioning to be the fourth member, I guess, by now, member of PYT. But that was pretty funny because the announcers even put over like, well, look at that. He got them all riled up. And then he got out and made his partner start the match. Lance.
He pissed them off. And then, good job, Lancer. I remember them saying that because, he did rile up Jerry and Tojo and then never bothers to tag in. But vowing sweet revenge here at the end of the matchup, which only goes, keep this in your back pocket for later, guys. 1 minute and 10 seconds. That's a thing. Jesus. We'll talk about that later on as we go off to our next music video featuring Jerry. He didn't get one way back when he was Southern champion for 6 days, but he does get one here after he is meaningless and has had his team with Tojoski and now with Jay Youngblood. Jerry training to Van Zant's I'm a Fighter.
That was another interesting choice, but it's not as bad as another one that we're going to get shortly.
There are music videos galore this week. In fact, when I posted this so that you could watch it, I posted it through my YouTube. We do a little private gimmick there, and I was hit by 7 flags on this show. No less than I've never been hit with that many flags before, and I was like, "Holy shit!" But I hadn't paid attention. Well, there were 7 music videos, legit songs used here on this one episode in a 60-minute window.
Yeah, I thought about that when I was watching this because it had just been like a week. When I watched it, it had only been like a week or a few days since I had put like 20 seconds of music at the front of a USWA show, and you got a notification on it, and you said something to me about it, and then I watched this. I'm like, goddamn, I bet he hated this day because he probably got 10 on this fucking episode. This is almost like a episode of Friday Night Videos or something back when we were kids. Like it was video heavy, and that's when things are really, 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 really in a tough spot when we're relying this much on videos, and some of them just random ones. Like Jerry was somewhat kind of recent, I guess. I mean, because he don't have a history, but some of these videos is shit that happened 3, 4, 5, 10 years ago, and we're showing these videos.
Yeah, I might have to actually yank this one down here pretty soon because I hear the YouTube AI is going crazy lately, removing people's accounts for less of reasons. So,
my buddy,
the rehab
Turner,
guy, not an actual rehab. The Brian Turner, maybe?
Brian
VHS
Turner,
rehab.
Yeah, Brian Turner's VHS rehab got his whole channel nuked a couple of days ago. I was like, golly, I got to watch out.
Well, Jerry not the only talent here in the territory, but we haven't seen this one in quite a while. Supposedly a fan wrote in asking what happened to Terry Taylor. That's a great question. Lance explaining here on TV that Terry's been defending that international title all around the globe. Well, it is the international title. That makes sense. But Taylor will soon be making his return to Memphis. So Terry Taylor on his way back. And we even get a music video of Terry here to remind you. Set to John Denver's Some Days Are Diamonds. I feel like we saw this when Terry was actually here.
We did, and it baffled me then. It still baffles me now. I'm like, you got Terry Taylor, the white meat baby face, young guy. I would assume women found him attractive. And you set some cool video, even like the, was it freeze frame that he had in UWF. Fucking John Denver. Like there's not a single John Denver song that exists that should ever be used in a professional wrestling related music video, especially not Some Days Are Diamonds. What the actual fuck?
I remember the old John Denver album commercial that I think it aired during like TBS, like WCW or something like that way back when. And I don't remember a single song that we got in that little snippet of commercial that I could really plug into a wrestling video. But here we are. And John Denver representing Terry Taylor here. Terry Taylor was promoted at the top of the show as being here on today's program. So you guys kind of see what I meant by misleading now. Terry Taylor was here in video form. He'll be back soon, though, to defend that international title, boy howdy. As after the music video plays, we head off to a commercial break. Back from break, though, I just about had a heart attack when what do I see but Leslie Floyd Creatchman wearing the Southern Heavyweight title belt. I thought, did they do a switch in a small town that I don't know? Did BOTA leave the territory and they gave the belt to Floyd? Technically, no. He's just keeping the belt warm for the Witchdoctor.
Yeah, because, crazed witch doctors who are masters of fire don't go around sporting championship belts. But by God, Floyd Creatchman certainly had no problem with it whatsoever.
Oh, he just looks so great in that white suit and the belt around his waist. As we hear from old Leslie here, as he instructs them to show the VTR once again from last week, where he narrates over BOTA doing those scary movements, whatever those were, with that flame in front of him. Superimposed fire in front of that video. Not really sure how they pulled that off here in Memphis 85, but they did it. And kudos to them for that one, as the Master of Fire makes his way to ringside, live in the studio. Katie, bar the door. Somebody contact the authorities, because we have a fucking murderer, BOTA the Witchdoctor, the Southern Heavyweight Champion, in the studio today to take on Les Freeman.
If we take this show that I'm on with you, the 1985 Memphis, and cross it with my USWA 1991, if we could put Master of Fire, BOTA the Witchdoctor, one-on-one in the ring with Tagar, Lord of the Volcano, who has a shield that shoots fire out of it, and then he has a glove that shoots fire out of it that he actually wrestles in. Can you imagine that? Somebody would probably have to get killed in that one too, right? I mean, that's what it would come to, I feel like.
That's the epitome of a fire match, and I hope they both lose or win, however the case may be. But man, Tagar, I always loved that one. That was the one I used to hear about, and then the tape trading came in the 90s, and I got to see it, and I was like, it was never so more excited, But BOTA, I don't know, man, because for every bit of believability that Kamala had, and I'm a guy who knew Kamala was a normal human being, but it wasn't until I met Kamala on the Indies and rode in a van with him that I finally just said, okay, this is, Jim Harris or whatever. But up until that point, even though I knew Kamala was a work, I still believed. Even though he had bowled by that point, Gene. But even then, with Slick, they were bowling and shit on Coliseum Video. But even then, I still wanted to believe. I still believed in the Kamala gimmick. But for every bit of believability that Kamala had, this BOTA thing has been the complete opposite. And make no mistake about it, guys, this was a complete rehash. Because where does BOTA have paint? On his face? On his tits? On his stomach? I mean, he's literally Kamala reincarnated. Just a terrible reincarnation of Kamala gimmick. Okay,
now if this was something you were wanting to address at a later date, by all means, you could clip this out of the show. No. But this is something I've had people message me about, and I feel like since this is kind of a slim episode, notes-wise, can we dispel the rumor once and for all right here and now that BOTA the Witchdoctor was not Tiger Conway Jr.?
Oh, my God. No, I thought we'd already done that. No, absolutely not. I mean, that goes back to the message boards, does it not? There was a group of guys who, just had the luck of affording the internet before a lot of us, or computers or things of that nature, and they put out all these narratives, who was a good worker, who wasn't, these stories that were told, these aliases that maybe they believed, maybe they didn't, I don't really know, but that was absolutely one of them, was that BOTA was Tiger Conway Jr. And this was during a period where I may not have had the BOTA footage. This was during a period where maybe I hadn't seen it in years. It was in my tapes somewhere in a box somewhere.
Yeah.
But I go, oh, okay. I remember him kind of having an afro. I remember him being stocky and short. Okay, maybe he was. But as you watch it, within 1 second, you see that's not Tiger Conway Jr. In fact, he's still going to be a jive tone after this, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, exactly. If this was in the 90s, way past the jive tone thing, I would have been like, all right, maybe it happened. But then, like you said, once you see it, you're definitely, if you've ever seen Tiger Conway Jr., then you're like, oh, no, definitely not. But yeah, man, I had 2 or 3 people message me about it. Two of them were pretty cool. One guy was just arguing me and said, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, and I shouldn't be doing a podcast if I don't have the knowledge to know that BOTA the Witchdoctor is Tiger Conway Jr.
And again, it goes back to the message board. They read something as gospel. It is literally, and you want to talk about going off completely. You tried to stay on track, but I'll just take you a little bit further just for a moment here. Because there were a lot of narratives that were put out there at the end of the 90s, the beginning of the 2000s, that I did not agree with. But I would have been in the minority, the silent minority or what have you. So had I said something, I would have been in that situation where I would have been shunned and looked at and laughed at and kicked off the message board and whatever the case may be for disagreeing with these unnamed people that, were basically controlling the wrestling narrative at the time. And it took well over 20 years for people to start not only fact checking a lot of things and fixing those corrections, but a lot of people to go, you know what, this guy wasn't that bad. You know what, this match wasn't that, this angle was a lot better than, and then now everybody kind of shifted their narrative and now everybody jumped on board the new narrative. That's always bothered me, but that was absolutely one of them. That was, I can't think of them off the top of my head, but there's several of those situations where it was like, so-and-so was this guy, and it was clearly not. I mean, I knew that then, right? I mean, and not necessarily this one, but you can visibly see he's not African-American. He appears to be some sort of a Polynesian descent or something, some sort of islander, Pacific Islander, based on what I can tell. I believe that he winds up being one of the New Guinea headhunters down there in Alabama.
Tio. That's been my belief.
I don't believe that's I don't think that's Tio. I thought there were some off-brand
There was
guys.
a tall one. There was a tall one that came in at the end, the one that came up through the ring in the 6-man
right,
tag.
I remember with Kevin Sullivan booked that, yeah.
Yeah, but fuck, he's twice as tall as Bota.
I didn't realize the headhunters. That's why I said I wasn't saying that as gospel. I thought I had done a little research in the past and came up with there were a couple of off-brand, I won't call them Samoans, but Polynesians or what have you that were there and it wasn't Tio and Tapu. So again, I don't want to get completely off topic. I just didn't realize I didn't know that was Tio and Tapu. I thought it was two other guys that never really made it per se.
Well, if anybody's listening that has a more factual something to stand on as far as who he is, I'd love to hear it. But if you think it's Tiger Conway Jr., you don't need to send it in and argue with us because we know it's not him.
Yeah, it's not Tiger Conway Jr., people. And yeah, I'll join you with that one forever and always. So, because he's going to be a jive tone with Shaska Watley one day. And how dare you defame the jive tones?
Exactly. Pistol Pez just returned this week on Memphis Wrestling, and it was a lot of fun.
Oh, Pez Watley's always a lot of fun, man, especially in the old ICW stuff, and I'm imagining in Memphis as well.
Within 2 minutes, Miss Texas came out to confront him, and listening to Miss Texas and Pez Watley argue on the microphone in 1991 was just my favorite thing of the episode. It was amazing.
He's here, and he's the Southern champion. And he has defeated Jerry Lawler for that title, I'll have you know. And nobody's ever done that before, 46 times or anything. But so he is not Kamala. He is Bota. We've made that. And he is not Tiger Conway. He is a witch doctor who has murdered other witch doctors to be the witch doctor champion of the world. And now the Southern champion of Memphis, Tennessee, as he comes jogging out with a spear in hand, barefoot and in a skirt gimmick, as they throw the term cosplay around today, Gene. But that's what this felt like completely to me. I mean, you almost hear the fans snicker at the way his character is presented here. It's just that bad to me. I feel like the fans aren't even taking this seriously. It's just like, what is this shit? And remember, he's 5'0", by the way, as he hops his way across the ring to start the match. So tell me your initial impressions of Bota now that you've seen him in the studio.
That makes a big difference. To say it was a difference for Tagar too, but like you see him in the video, and you can tell he's not a bit like Kamala-sized guy by any stretch of the imagination. But there's no point of reference to kind of figure out just exactly what size he is. And I know that was the formula back then. Bring some new heel in, they're trying to get over, let him beat Lawler the first or second weekend, and then Lawler will chase it for a little bit. Man, Mountain Link, different people over the years. But god dang, man, as soon as I saw him, I had the same reaction the people in the studio did. I mean, his torch is clearly just a tiki torch you buy at home, Lowe's or some such like that. Sure. I just picture like them sitting around after a show one night going, we need a great heel, and we can't get any names in right now. Well, hell, let's just create our own. We made Kamala. Right. We can create another one.
Right.
And the fact that they thought this little short guy, who I'm sure would have to almost look up at Bill Dundee, how you thought you were going to make a believable monster out of him. I guess we'll call him a master of fire, and we'll say he's a witch doctor and all this different shit. But it was just eye-rolling. Even for 1985, you're just like, oh, this is fucking silly. Like, what are we doing? I
feel like another guy might have been able to pull this off to some degree, but this guy wasn't having it. It didn't work for me anyway. As he hops into the ring, he literally hops, not jumps, not leaps. He hops like a frog or a rabbit, or take your pick, across the ring all the way to his opponent, Freeman, before attacking him. That's one way to get your guys off the mark. Les Freeman doesn't know what the fuck to make of this. Bota attacking him as Creatchman going to join Lance Russell for commentary here as the action gets going. Chops to the chest, chops to the back, double thrust chop, and a savate kick. Threw you off there, Gene. You thought he was going to chop him again. Savate kick ends this one 33 seconds. BOTA, the Witch Doctor, remains undefeated.
So far in this episode, we've had 10 minutes worth of music videos and roughly 2 minutes worth of in-ring action.
Right. If you round up, it's been, yes, two minutes, absolutely. To beat Jerry Lawler right now, to have a say, to own a stake in the company, and to still agree to drop the belt to this, you can never say that the King wasn't a team player. You want me to lose the belt to this guy and see if it works? Okay. Because I'm not buying it, but he is the Southern champion.
And, there was some goofy gimmicks that came in Jimmy Hart's day where Jimmy Hart was able to get him over with just his mic work, the heat he had at ringside. You could somehow make it work. But the only thing worse than BOTA is his manager. Like, he's even less believable. He's more corny, more absurd than the Witch Doctor. So there's no saving this.
No, that was a case where Jimmy Hart was so over and so good at what he did that it didn't matter who he was managing. They were going to get over through Jimmy. It's like Andy Kaufman was not a believable wrestler, but he was so over, it didn't matter if he could work, right? People just hated him, right? So
exactly.
That's just not happening here with these guys. And I mean, this is like the 17th guy to come in since Jimmy Hart's been gone. And Jimmy was here in 1985, mind you guys. So, I mean, this is rough going, but we're going to see what old Leslie Floyd has here in the Witch Doctor moving forward. But immediately post-match, I don't know if you caught this, where it looks like we're going to get another Creatchman promo. He walks over, he starts to talk, but the Evansville version of the video cuts straight away to a Bill Dundee music video to Christine McVie's Got a Hold on Me. I'm not even familiar with this fucking song. I feel like on the live feed in Memphis, they likely hear, I'm hoping, they explained why Bill Dundee had a music video, because he's coming into the Mid-South Coliseum on Monday night to challenge BOTA for the Southern title, but we don't get that anywhere here on the Evansville feed.
Yeah, that's why these other towns, the feeds were really odd, because a lot of things that lent, explained things or gave context or gave you reasons for things would just get cut because it was a part of something they can't really show. And then now you just got this random. See, I thought when I saw Leslie Creatchman walking over for another promo and this video started, I thought I had somehow did that with my mind. Like I willed that promo to not happen here. But you saw it too. So I guess that wasn't the case, but, we noticed that like the last 2 months of '93, we basically had to do Evansville versions, and there's so much cut out of those. When you looked at the Monday night card and looked at what the TV show was, you're like, boy, like this is a lot. There's a world of difference right here between what they saw and what the Memphis people saw. And some of them times it's like, how did they even get people out to the matches with some of the shit they're sending as television?
Well, we get the Bill Dundee music video, which is not explained, but we do know the superstar, or at least everyone now knows, thanks to me promoting it here, that Bill Dundee's getting a title shot against BOTA on Monday night at the Coliseum. So I'm assuming maybe we also got a Bill Dundee promo that, sent in VTR or whatever, but we don't get that here. So it is what it is. We'll talk about it when we get there Monday night.
I said that a moment ago, just purely like I wasn't trying to foreshadow anything.
Right.
But do you think the idea was like, who's somebody we could get in here that's not going to tower over this guy and look completely ridiculous challenging our new champion? Can we get Dundee? I don't know. Pick up the phone. Let's see. Because anybody else is going to be, nearly a foot taller than this guy.
I may mention that when we get to Monday night. We'll have to wait and see when we get to the notes. I feel like I wrote some things there for other reasons. But we'll see when we get there. But no, that's an excellent call. I mean, it really is. But I think they also needed somebody to fill in between Lawler. You can't just, Lawler has lost it and won it right back. But if you're trying to do something with this BOTA guy, you need somebody in the interim. And Stan Lane and Steve Keirn were probably like, no way, I'm not jobbing to that guy. So Dundee coming in. We'll see what the superstar does with him, though, when we get there. And it's an excellent call on the size differential. Not so much there. Not that Jerry Lawler's a tall guy, but Bill Dundee, obviously, more on the same page as BOTA.
Relive the glory days of Memphis wrestling with the Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast. Each week, we go back in time to review USWA Championship Wrestling from the 1990s, episode by episode. Join us for watch-alongs, behind-the-scenes stories, and exclusive interviews with people who were there and lived it. Whether you grew up watching it or you're discovering it for the first time, this podcast is your ringside seat to Memphis wrestling history. It's all a part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Listen now at uswapodcast.com.
Hey guys, Ray Russell back to talk to you about all the new and exciting audio and video podcasts we've been putting together over at patreon.com/WrestleCopia. As a self-funded brand, this entire ship is powered by our patrons. It's your support that keeps all of these wonderful shows going here at WrestleCopia. And with that said, I wanted to mention that we now have 3 major tiers with tons of Patreon-exclusive next-level content for our Patreon supporters. And it all starts with the $5 all-access tier, which gets you early access to many of the weekly podcasts, at least a dozen monthly digital downloads for your viewing and reading pleasure, the insanely detailed show notes for the Wrestling Memory Grenade Regional Rasslin, and the OG Monday Warfare podcast, plus random bonus video drops, archived old-school audio watch-alongs from the early years of the brand. And if that's not all, the brand new Patreon-exclusive podcast, Ranting Raw, featuring yours truly, Ray Russell, completely uncensored, unfiltered, with honest takes, taking patron questions and addressing various topics from throughout wrestling history. It is a whole lot of fun wrapped under the all-access tier for only $5, but things get even hotter with the VIP Superfan tier. For just a few dollars more, you get everything already mentioned in the all-access tier. Plus, as part of the VIP tier, a whole new slew of videocast series where it's not just your typical watch-alongs. Sure, we laugh, we have fun, but we're also breaking down the history, the context, and the why behind what you're seeing. And as part of the VIP tier, you have access to Dan Gennety's Puro Resu Academy videocast, the Coliseum videocast with co-host Gene Jackson, and the Monday Warfare videocast, Raw vs. Nitro, breaking down the history of the Monday Night War. Plus, you also get the Memphis 1985 folder of goodies and all show notes for the Puro Academy podcast and Gene's retro review show. Lots to be had there at the VIP tier. But wait, there's more. For those WrestleCopia backers who crave even more from the brand, we bring you yet another level of content fit for a warrior. Because it is indeed the ultimate tier, which gives you everything from the all-access pass, everything from the VIP tier, plus you will receive access to the big ones, video series, featuring a lengthy look and discussion into some of the biggest pay-per-views, super shows, and other events from throughout wrestling history. It's also a great place to keep up with the big events that coincide with the Monday Warfare videocast and so many other big events from years gone by. You'll also have access to the newest big hit to the Copia brand. I'm talking about Regional Rasslin Unreal, the video series. Get ready for the next level in Regional Rasslin as we dissect territory history in video form. Watch along with us. But still, even more for your money, guys. You'll also receive access to the Treasure Chest, which offers patrons the unique opportunity to download and watch select rarities from wrestling history. And for those of you who are wondering what we offer, are contemplating joining a paid Patreon membership, or simply a curious lurker, a reminder there's a free tier at our Patreon that you can join as well. Remember guys, no subscription, cancel any time, but I think you'll like the content that we're offering there for any budget you may have. And you can sign up right now, patreon.com/WrestleCopia, or look for the QR code where available. We appreciate your support in helping us pay the bills to keep the WrestleCopia Podcast Network running and enabling us to continue to bring you all the quality programming that we offer.
Hey, it's Bob Smith, and guess what? The Outdated Wrestling Hour is now part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. But hey, no fear, you're still going to hear the unique guests, comedy, music, authors, journalists, funny people. Who knows who's going to end up on the Outdated Wrestling Hour? Remember, it's all new and all old. So check it out in the WrestleCopia Podcast Network and wherever you get your podcasts. Listen if you know what's good for you.
I guess to fill time on the Evansville feed, we have Lance Russell narrate the entire fiasco from last week between the Sheepherders and the Fabulous once again. So not only do we lose 30 minutes of the Memphis feed, you can tack on another 10 minutes here because this felt like it was an Evansville feed only. Like that's what we were killing time with. So basically an entire segment wasted this week by showing us an entire segment from last week explaining and showing once again the Sheepherders defeating the Fabs for the tag team titles. So if you figure we lost 40 minutes of the Memphis feed, think about it, we lost basically half of the live Memphis show this week.
Yeah, and I'm guessing it must have been the good parts, or else there weren't any.
Well, I was hoping the same thing by the end of this episode. I'll tell you that much. So we don't get whatever we were missing here, but we do get another music video, the Fabulous Ones to Morris Day and the Times, Jungle Love. Oh. So the Fabs get a music video this week. We'll have to wait and see what they're doing this week on Monday night because we're not going to get a lot of build, I don't think, here. Maybe we will. We'll have to wait and see. We come back to the ring for tag team action. It is the former Southern Tag Champions, the Fabs, taking on Jerry Garmon and Benny Traylor. Hey, look at that team. Matching gear and everything. Traylor and Garmon. And dare I say, a better look than the future Rough and Ready later on, right? The original token African-American job guy team here in the 80s, Garmon and Traylor.
Yeah, man, those guys always look like in the right circumstances they could have gotten pushed somewhere, and they in the Mississippi Outlaw shows they did. I went to some shows when I was a kid, like local shows that they were on, and they hyped up that they were Memphis TV superstars, and they would put them over. But even here, when the first time you see them in the ring, like, all right, is this a new tag team? And then you realize, oh, they're jobbers that just happen to look pretty damn good. But and they stick around through. Gosh, I know they're still around in 87 and probably 88, maybe even into 89, but definitely into 88.
I know they'll even do jobs for Crockett on TBS, I think in 86. So that might be where they are in between. But no, they do look the part. And with as low of a talent roster as you have right now, I don't know why you wouldn't do a little more with these guys, but we've been saying the same thing for the Batten Twins for the first several months of the year as well. Yeah. So I guess they just pick and choose who they want to put over here. But these guys do look the part. They fit the bill. They have matching gear, so they look like a real tag team. But unfortunately, they're out here taking on the Fabs, and it don't get no better than that. Steve Keirn looking pissed off after being whacked with a loaded sock last week, and he's going to take it out on poor Garmon. Now, Benny Traylor attempts to come in to help his partner, but Stan Lane going to intercept that. Ain't happening, son. Steve Keirn then with that nasty forearm smash wipes Garmon out flat and clean. The Fabs go over 1 minute and 1 second.
When this match started, I thought they're not going to because clearly these guys are a job team. But push comes to shove, the Fabulous Ones could have had a lot better match with Jerry Garmon and Benny Traylor than what they was able to get out of the Sheepherders. It just goes to show you in wrestling, it's not always about your ability and looks and different things. There's a lot of different factors factor in as far as how you're going to get used. And wrong place, wrong time. But yeah, I did. I was when I was writing that. Article on Pez Watley, I went and seen some matches where they were in Crockett at the time, Garmon and Traylor.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and they were very competent in what they did out there. Obviously, just doing jobs and whatnot. But again, going back, absolutely, they could have had I'm sure an accountable match here on TV against the Fabs. But obviously, they weren't really in the cards to get a push. But also, they're telling the story of Steve Keirn's back and he's pissed off. He got knocked out last week and bloodied on TV, and now he's back for revenge using that nasty forearm that I've seen him use going back to at least 1980 in Georgia. So, I mean, that's a believable forearm, and I'm not talking a flying forearm either, guys. I mean, it looks real. Damn it, I'll put it that way. As we come out of the match, Stan Lane, well, both Fabs, but Stan Lane tries to talk on the mic. Lance Russell immediately cutting him off, informing Stan, we have to take a break, but we'll talk to you on the other side. Now, I don't know why they left that in because the Fabs never return. On the Evansville feed anyway.
I feel like Randy must have been editing some of these shows. I'm not taking that out. Just leave it. They'll keep watching.
We'll leave it, Randy. We'll leave it in. So, yeah, basically, Lance says we'll talk to you on the other side of the commercial break. We come back from break, and instead, it's a music video. What do you know? Jerry Lawler, Scandal, Bang Bang, I Am the Warrior.
Yeah, at least that's a little more appropriate song than some of these others. I don't think you're ever going to see Lawler out there wrestling to John Denver. I think he'd get that shut down before they ever aired it.
We had a local public access wrestling show here in the 1990s. I'm not going to put the guy over because he wasn't a really great human being outside of this, but he would air a lot of shit that he didn't own. Imagine that. And the two music videos, he must have loved these back in the 80s, because the two music videos that he played almost every week was Jerry Lawler, The Warrior, and Kerry Von Erich's Here I Go Again on My Own.
Oh, gosh, yes. I've seen that so many times back in the day.
And,
Good call.
So when I saw this, man, it just took me back to the 90s anyway, the Jerry Lawler, The Warrior music video. But we hear from the King. He is here on the Evansville feed, Jerry Lawler. But before we get to the interview, Lance Russell announcing that the AWA committee are currently calling for the suspension of an official for the first time in history, referencing Tom Branch, the referee, suspended here as an official.
Yeah, that AWA committee's been busy lately, man. They've been throwing out rulings and getting involved here, so kudos to them. You don't want the referee that Lawler's feuding with to be more imposing than the champion is physically.
Right, so I guess you could say they have, for the time being anyway, fired the referee, who is now apparently turned heel. As we go to a VTR of recent actions by Branch to kind of explain all of this away. First, his first action as the official, we go back and see how he disqualified Jerry Lawler. We talked about this in the past, Lawler versus Bruiser Brody. Brody had been using multiple foreign objects by that point in the match. I mean, he was using everything that wasn't nailed down, classic Brody style. But finally, Lawler going to block a shot and be caught using I believe it was a chair himself, and Tom Branch disqualifying Lawler immediately. And that's when we hear from Tom Branch. We go back to his explanation on TV the following week, explaining it all away. He had had enough of people like Jerry Lawler, who thinks that, they can walk all over the officiating.
Yeah, it's dangerous. Danny Davis 2 years early and not well done.
No, it's not. Well, it's Tom Branch. What do you expect? We also see the end. Well, we were talking about this and how it played out, because we couldn't figure out how Travis and Sexton defeated Jerry Lawler and Nick Bockwinkel. But once again, we see that Tom Branch got involved, and we had speculated that, but the results I had stated, we assumed it was a pinfall loss, and I just couldn't buy that. But luckily, come to find out, the King gets heated. Tom Branch keeps getting in his way, so Jerry Lawler shoving Branch down, getting his team disqualified. So I wrote here in my notes, okay, whew, it wasn't a pinfall, just a DQ win for Sexton and Travis.
All is right with the world again, because, yes, that was very unsettling to think that, that either one of those guys pinned Lawler or Bockwinkel.
So the continuity continues on. We also see Tom Branch screwing over Tojo Yamamoto and Jerry Jarrett, recently giving Phil Hickerson and the Spoiler a win at the Coliseum, even shoving Jerry Jarrett down before running off, is Tom Branch here, arguing with Jarrett. So, yeah, Tom Branch is getting involved hot and heavy all over the place. But finally, the last straw, this past Monday night, Southern champion at the time, Jerry Lawler versus BOTA'S. Jerry Calhoun is actually the referee, but he gets bumped to the floor as Jerry Lawler delivers that patented fist drop off the middle rope, taking BOTA down and out. Floyd Creatchman running in. Jerry Lawler going to go after Mr. Floyd, but Tom Branch to ringside, the official going to maybe replace Jerry Calhoun here, and BOTA'S from behind with a schoolboy, as Jerry Lawler has to actually pull Tom Branch down with him in the schoolboy. Branch then making the quick 1, 2, 3 as we have a new champion. That's how it all played out.
All right. Well, I wondered how they made that even the least bit feasible, but that's Memphis all the way right there, man. That's a Memphis finish if you ever heard one.
I'm not going to encourage you, Gene, to go back and watch this episode ever again. But if you ever do, or if you're curious, I invite you to go back to watch the finish of that match, the pinfall specifically. Lawler, it looks like he's actually forcing Branch, not on purpose, like intentionally trying to pull him down with him during that schoolboy, and the whole thing looks really awkward.
Yeah, I remember the whole thing. I was like, hey, this is just a clusterfuck right here. Like, what is it? But the booker is pushing his son, even though he's being a referee right now. We're still putting him in a feud with Lawler because why not?
Well, the King was not happy with that pinfall loss. In fact, he immediately jumps up going after Tom Branch, but Creatchman and BOTA grabbing Jerry Lawler from behind, and Branch with a cheap shot lays down the King, and the heels quickly and wisely leave ringside. Not very witch-doctor-y to go running off like that, I noted here.
No, that's not what I wanted my Witchdoctor champion to be, a coward running away.
Runs around murdering people on the island of Maori, but here in Memphis, running away from the King.
Lawler has shown he's not afraid to sell for a referee when it comes time. Because he gets laid out by Renesto there, or Branch, I guess I should say.
Branch.
And in 93, there's that one instance where freaking Paul Neighbors knocked him on his ass during a match. So, people can knock Lawler all they want, but, he sold for people when it was time to sell for people.
And he does jobs for people that don't deserve.
Amen.
Time and time again. So we see all of this. I will give them this much. They spent a lot of time putting this all together. You're right. You know what I mean? Like they're actually building the storyline, even if it is Tom Branch involved. As we cut back from all those VTRs back to the studio with Jerry Lawler and Lance Russell. But it's Tom Branch in another studio live via a wheeled out TV set here so that they can both speak without any issues. So Jerry Lawler going to talk to a TV screen here in studio.
I know I've had a flashback to homeroom back in the day when we was getting shown a video on the TV there. It comes rolling it out. But we got Tom Branch in another studio because, boy, we wouldn't want any kind of wild brawl to break out between these two.
Well, Tom Branch is going to defend himself here on the TV screen. He was simply replacing the injured Jerry Calhoun, but Jerry Lawler called him an SOB and a DAM referee.
As in the kind that holds back water? I mean, that's not how you spell damn if you called a damn referee.
I really didn't know how to take that. Yeah, I didn't know how to take that. I don't know. I don't even know. I really didn't know how to. You can see my screen here in my notes. There's just about 37 dots. I don't know.
I wanted Lance to go, well, don't be a PUSSY about it, Branch. Come on.
Don't be a PUSIE. Fucking Tom Branch, everyone. Anywho, Tom, he didn't have to take that from Jerry Lawler anymore, so he hit the King, and he would hit him no matter who was holding him. King or not. So Jerry Lawler was held. I should point that out. I think we mentioned that, but Lawler was being held at the time by BOTA and Creatchman so that Tom Branch could get that sucker punch in. But he says, I didn't need anybody in there. I could take you out all on my own. Lawler acknowledging Branch's past as a wrestler. He heard Tom come out here and mention it a few weeks ago. But he also mentions that Branch pointed out that maybe he couldn't make it as a wrestler. He wasn't as good as the King. He wasn't as good as the Fabs. So Lawler's speculating, well, you couldn't make it as a wrestler. You couldn't get the job done. So you became a referee. And now you're jealous that you couldn't hack it. As name calling the least of Branch's problems now, he will be taking him out in the ring. So it sounds like we're setting up for a singles match between these two before too long. But right now, Branch with the big talk through a TV screen, he just may beat Jerry Lawler's brains in as they have an upcoming handicap match at the Coliseum. So this is interesting, Gene. They're promoting this match on the Evansville feed, so maybe we're going to get this in Evansville down the road.
Yeah, that should be fun to watch. Handicap match, but that's a good call by Lawler. I mean, can you name hardly any referees who were previously wrestlers that were just really good wrestlers, but they just chose to be referee? I mean, the only one I can think of off the top of my head is like Scott Armstrong, but most everybody else, they became a referee for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, the old school, you know what I mean? Like back in the 70s, most of those guys that couldn't wrestle anymore, we saw quite a few. But yeah, in this era, no, there's very few, very few. I know Nick Patrick had some issues. He wanted to be a worker, but he was never, what have you, as far as talent goes, as a wrestler. But yeah, I can't think of anybody who could hack it. Look at Danny Davis. They tried to make him from a referee to a wrestler, and he couldn't hack it, so he went back to being referee. So even Danny couldn't beat that.
Exactly.
Mold. Yeah.
And then I was kind of surprised, like when I got to Trading Territory tapes and saw Nick Patrick in the ring wrestling, and I'm like, after it was over, like, oh, that's why he was a referee.
Yeah, Nick didn't really get much of a push anywhere, but he was also an assassin's son. just a different assassin.
Yeah.
Phil Hickerson, that is, will be teaming with Tom Branch to take on Jerry the King Lawler. At least Branch has also a veteran on his side here. As the King feels pretty positive Branch's time as a referee is over, thank God. And his wrestling days are numbered too. Preach it, brother. King gonna take out Tom Branch once and for all. We can only hope.
Phil Hickerson was a very talented wrestler in his day, great promo. And I remember, in this day and age, in like 85, 86, thinking, yeah, man, he's kind of past his prime. And then you think about he's still around in like 89 doing that PY Chuhai gimmick.
Absolutely,
he wrung every bit of juice he could out of that one.
I loved it, man. I loved it. Oh my God. PY Chuhai, Phil Hickerson here in 85, though, teaming with Tom Branch of all. He'll do anything to get a payday, I guess, at least at points in times. Dave Brown going to close the show as usual, running down the show results. I thought, well, they must have edited some matches off this show because we only saw 3. But guess what? Dave Brown running down the 3 matches we saw with a combined time of less than 2 minutes and 45 seconds. I felt like I was watching an Attitude Era Raw, only a lot less entertaining. I think the AWA committee needs to look at the booker here rather than the officials because, my God, 3 matches in 90 minutes, supposedly. Less than 3 minutes of wrestling.
That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy when you think about that, because everybody, like all the old dudes, were like, I try to watch this new wrestling. Ain't nothing but a bunch of talking. They don't do no wrestling. They just sit there and talk.
That's right, yeah.
All right. And then after they get done bitching about that, it needs to be more like Memphis. Well, actually, because as I keep watching more of it, I start to realize that at no point were the TV matches ever a focus. They were just a means to an end in every situation. But less than 3 minutes in a 90-minute show is just absolutely absurd. I mean, unless there's another fucking snowstorm or something, I can't justify that.
No, nor can I, but it does end this episode of TV this week. We go on to the house shows there. Saturday night in Nashville. On the card, I don't have results, but I do have the card here. Della Sera and Freeman versus Smithson and Adonis. Bill Smithson and Terry Adonis against Les Freeman and Gino Della Sera. Travis and Sexton taking on Jerry Oski and Tommy Montana. It's Jarrett and Tojo against the PYT. BOTA, the Witchdoctor, taking on the Southern champion, Jerry Lawler. What do you want to bet the King loses the belt there in Nashville?
Looking like it. Yep, the good old bicycle at it again.
That's it. And the Fabs also battling the Sheepherders, I imagine, for revenge from TV. So that's what we do in Nashville. We do not have a Jerry Lawler show this weekend. It likely aired, but we don't have it unless he was taking time off for the summer. I don't know how that worked, but we don't have a Lawler show here. So we're going to move on to Coliseum results Monday night, July the 1st. We're in July, Gene. We've made it to the other side of 85.
Yes, we have crossed over into July. In the second half, and let's hope things start to make a big comeback in the second half.
Like I said, it gets worse before it gets better, but let's check out the card here for Monday night. The spoiler, Frank Morrell over Les Freeman in the opener. Midget action, Cowboy Lang defeating Little Tokyo. And that's when I wrote in my notes, is it really wise to have midgets in town at the same time BOTA is your Southern champion? I don't know. PYT over Jerry Oski and Gino Della Sera. Tojo Yamamoto, Jerry Jarrett defeating Travis and Sexton. I'll take that. Sheepherders, Southern Tag Team Champions over the Fabs by DQ. Handicap action, here it is. Here's the big one. Jerry Lawler defeating Phil Hickerson and Tom Branch, also by DQ. And our main event, the second midget match of the night, as I wrote here, Southern Champion BOTA over Bill Dundee by DQ.
Good Lord. So many matches ended in DQs back then. I never paid that much attention to them because I didn't immediately, usually, I'd watch the show, I wasn't immediately seeing the results of the Monday night cards like we do in these review shows. But good grief, going through 93, going through 91, everything we've seen here in 85, and then other shows I watched for fun. Holy shit, man. I mean, that many DQs in a row even is another crazy part of that. But like you said, I don't know if it's wise to have midgets on the card when the main event's BOTA and Bill Dundee. I mean, what's Little Tokyo going to be the next Foreign Menace heel once BOTA plays out?
I always liked Little Tokyo when he was wearing that Mr. Fuji tux on that episode of TNT. That would have been awesome. Like that's
Yes.
a character. I would have kept that. That's a keeper.
Yeah, we need more of that.
Need more of that in our life, Coliseum videocast style. But no, you know, I've heard other people, and including our very own Jamie Ward here from WrestleCopia, argue the fact that, hey, in our era, we were used to DQs, so we didn't mind them. I mean, I can only speak for me. I know when I used to go to the Richfield Coliseum and it was a night of DQs, not only was I not happy with the results, even as a kid, but I heard a lot of people around me bitching about it. So
Yeah.
I don't think that's acceptable. I'm not saying that you can't have DQs and you can't go, well, they couldn't really do a pinfall in this match and things like that, or you're telling a story and you're not there to the finish yet. I get all that, and I'm not arguing that. I don't even care if 2 of the 3 of these matches were a DQ, but you can't give people nothing, and then when your attendance continues to dwindle, question why. And I feel like we've seen a lot more of that since Tom Branch has got here than even before.
Yeah, I mean, let's say they do intermission after Tojo and Jerry Jarrett's match. You come back from intermission, the top 3 matches, DQs, and all of them back to back to back. I mean, that's a kick in the nuts, no matter how old you are. And I mean, I guess maybe some people were used to them. I don't know, but to me, it's just you're not delivering on what you promised. You know, I mean, yeah, 1 or 2 every now and then because it moves the story forward. It's what needs to be done. But it's usually just laziness. You know, why the hell would Jerry Lawler not pin? If you want to keep the heat on Branch, let him pin Hickerson because they ain't doing shit with Hickerson. Let him pin Hickerson and Branch escapes or whatever.
Maybe Tom knocks out Hickerson with a loaded object. Just, you can do a lot of things with that. I mean, I get it with the Herders and Fabs. I mean, you're telling the story. You don't want to put somebody over immediately after the TV, and then Jackie Fargo and Stan last Monday, but that was a DQ as well. And now we see the same thing here this week with Steve Keirn replacing Jackie Fargo, basically probably doing something close to a similar finish as we saw last week in the Coliseum. Lawler, again, we could have had a pin there, but they want to do the DQ. They want to keep pushing the Branch thing. Okay. But it's the main event, too. And, I said in jest, I was joking when I said the midget match with Bota and Dundee, but Dundee is a superstar. No pun intended, guys. Dundee is a superstar here, specifically in the Memphis territory. I guess he comes in and says, I'm not doing the job. And so he doesn't do the job. But now Bota has that cheap title win over Lawler last week. And this is the week he has the chance to get taken seriously. And we just do another disqualification with him.
And here's what I understand. We did a DQ, but Dundee's the one that got DQ'd. Bota won. Right. So why would you not have the Master of Fire attempt to throw fire at Dundee, say he moves, the referee takes the fireball, whatever. Bota's the one that gets disqualified, not freaking Dundee.
No, absolutely. Great call. There's a lot of different things we could have done here besides what we did here. But it is what it is. We'll see what happens as we say every week here in the Memphis territory. We go on right now, though, to July 2nd, Louisville Gardens in Kentucky. Cowboy Lang over Little Tokyo. PYT defeating Gino De La Sera and Tracy Smothers. Haven't seen him in a while. Tojo Yamamoto over Frank Morel is the spoiler. It's Bota, the Witchdoctor, defeating Les Freeman. Sexton and Travis scoring a win over Jerry Oski and Tommy Montana. Jerry Jarrett over Tom Branch by disqualification. And the Fabulous Ones double DQ with the Sheepherders here in Louisville.
So our new superstar champs, middle of the card there. I mean, I know there's no Lawler, but that feels kind of odd.
It is kind of odd, and I was trying to do the math in regards to the title change. This would have been the week in Louisville that you would have done the title change. So, yeah, very curious. There is no King on the card. I don't know if Jerry had a softball game or what the hell was going on here. But, Bota just scoring a generic win over Freeman on the middle of the card. Maybe they'll just reference the title change on the TV from the Coliseum, I suppose. But, that's where we're at here in Kentucky as we move on to Evansville, Indiana, July the 3rd. Much smaller card. And from what I could find, this was the entire card, by the way. 5 matches. They did a split show, and I can't find the other card. It's Cowboy Lang over Little Tokyo, PYT defeating Oski and Tommy Montana, Tojo Yamamoto over the spoiler, Jerry Jarrett again defeating Tom Branch by DQ, and again, no contest between the Sheeps and the Fabs.
If you want a clean finish, you have come to the wrong place if you're at a Memphis show in 85. God help us. Boy, can you imagine? I bet you Tojo and Spoiler put on a fucking clinic. Don't you know that was probably just a spot fest?
You use the word spot. Doesn't this feel like a spot show based on the card?
Oh, God, yes.
I mean, at least they didn't overhype anything on the shitty-ass Evansville feed because you see what they gave them that week on Wednesday night. No wonder nobody came to the fucking matches. My goodness.
Yeah, this feels like Tupelo on a Friday night. These were the guys that can make it down there and still make it to Memphis Saturday morning. Good Lord.
No, Sheeps and Fabs, the only thing on that card even worthwhile, unbelievable, is we move on to Thursday, July the 4th. Happy 4th of July, Independence Day in Grayson County, Kentucky, at the high school. Air-conditioned gym. By God, but no matches. But the gym was air-conditioned, so I would have went.
Hey, so when you're advertising shows in July, that means a lot. There's a few shows that I got to, and like, if I'd have known this place wasn't air conditioned, I would not have came. But I done bought my ticket. So
there was a period where they first started putting air conditioning into some of these buildings, where you would see all the. I don't just mean in Memphis, but any of the territories, you would see that would be plugged in there. They would make sure to mention that. That was as big of a draw as the main event to some people, depending on the territory and how hot it was.
Oh, I can believe it, because July in Kentucky is pretty hot.
It's rough.
Definitely is in Tennessee and Mississippi.
It's hot times, baby. It absolutely is. We move on. One final night of wrestling action. Lexington, Kentucky, Rupp Arena, July the 5th. Terry Adonis over Les Freeman. Cowboy Lang defeating Little Tokyo. Midget's here all week long. Bill Smithson defeating Gino Della Sera. PYT over Tojo and Jerry Jarrett. Travis and Sexton defeating Oski and Montana. Jerry Lawler scoring a win over BOTA by DQ. And in the main event, once again, no contest, double DQ. Call it what you will. The Fabs and the Sheepherders continue to battle to a draw of sorts.
Oh, good Lord. Well, like I say, after so many results, you start to expect, like, all right, well, what's the last two matches that are going to end in some sort of DQ? And there it is.
Well, it was a show. I mean, 7 matches on the card, which is more than I can say for Evansville.
Yeah, but other than having Lawler on the card, they didn't gain anything.
That is true. It's a rough night. And dare I say, we didn't see, I know we were missing a lot of the TV, but it feels like the PYT have been getting played out lately. Like, they're not using them very much on TV. It's certainly not pushing them to the level they were before the Sheepherders arrived. I think they're dropping the ball there. I know, your runs are short-lived in Memphis compared to some of the other territories, but I still feel like they could do a whole lot more with Coco and Norvell. And they haven't really been utilized on the last couple of weeks of TV. And we see them here. They're still running the gauntlet with Tojo and Jarrett on the lesser shows. But were the PYTs even on the Monday night card? They were over Oski and Gino Della Sera. So they're kind of just running in place right now.
Yeah, they're just in mid-card limbo right now. They got, I don't know about Della Sera, and we don't know how Oski is, but all these matches with Jarrett and Tojo had to be wearing on them. They had to be like, all right, what are we heading for here? Do we do anything? Is this what we're reduced to now? Because, Jarrett could get in there and do a little bit. As you mentioned earlier in the show, not a lot, but Tojo was just fucking immobile almost. He was going to throw a couple of chops, and that's about all he was going to get out of him. Mm-hmm. So
I think you said it. He made Plowboy Frazier look like, the world beater when we saw that match earlier. Even Frazier looked like leaps and bounds a better worker than Tojo at this point, and he just had better days. Nothing wrong with that, but go back and, booking isn't always about the best matches. Obviously, you could do Fabs and PYT forever if that was the case compared to some of the other tag team they've been putting in here as of late. It's odd that Jarrett, not that they're over or they should be put in a position to shine, but Jarrett and Tojo were a thing once upon a time, many moons ago, and they're just kind of even floating around right now. There's no real backstory, and you don't need to put them in the title matches. You don't need to put them in the big tag team match that's supposed to be drawing. That goes to the Fabs, no doubt about it. But I'm sitting here going, why are they even in the ring? Do they just need bodies? Because they're just out there right now. There's no reason for them to be out of retirement, I guess.
No, it just has to be just, we need bodies, and this is Jarrett's company, and Tojo will do anything for Jarrett, from what I hear. Yeah. And so they're just there because those guys could have continued to have been, just like Jackie Fargo, a special attraction 2-3 times a year at best, and you just come back and you maybe make one round around the loop and then you're out. They've been hitting the loop now for 3-4 months.
Yeah, it's been a while. They've certainly been out here for quite a few months, and they're not really doing much of anything. And I don't understand the point when you bring a guy out of retirement like Jarrett after so longer period. Usually there's a story behind it. We saw some story early on, and then it's like it kind of faded away, and it's like, well, what are you doing now? Because he's just out here wrestling, and there's no real purpose or point to it. It's just filling the card. So I guess you're right. I guess he is just filling the card right now, which is just scary to think how rough the situation here is in Memphis. And for the last few weeks, we keep saying the shows are getting worse and worse. I don't know that this show was any worse than anything we've already seen. It was just like nothing was there. It's like the old, if the tree falls in the forest and there's nobody there to hear, it doesn't make a sound. It's like, if you have a wrestling show on and nothing happens, did you really have a wrestling show? Because what did we see here this week?
I mean, we saw less than 3 minutes worth of matches.
Right.
We saw probably 30 minutes worth. That's an exaggeration, but we saw way too much music videos.
Right.
And then if you break down what we saw promo-wise, we saw Lawler argue with a referee. None of them was memorable. Now I'm blanking out. We just got through talking about them, and I'm blanking out on who we even saw out here.
BOTA. We saw BOTA.
The whole BOTA.
We heard from
we saw Leslie Floyd Creatchman sporting a heavyweight title, which just pretty much is like, if you wanted to put like just a stamp on like, all right, what was it like in June and July of '85? You just post a picture of Leslie Floyd Creatchman wearing the title and go that, and people go, okay, I'll skip that. When does it get good again? Go ahead a couple of months.
Yeah, I mean, I looked ahead just really quickly a few weeks ago, skimmed the Mid-South Coliseum results, and I don't even remember them, but I remember going, okay, there's I won't call it a light at the end of the tunnel because it takes a while, but there's certainly better things to come. And I can't even tell you what they were now. I just remember thinking, okay, well, this is still better than what we're doing right now. So I'm looking forward to getting there whenever that is. But it's going to be a rough patch here over the summer. And until Tom Renesto, it's like when you have a coach of a football team and he's running into the ground. You can't wait for the end of the season for him to be fired. Unfortunately, there is no season in wrestling. So I don't know when Tom Renesto is getting fired, but I can't wait for that day to see how quickly things turn around or if they turn around.
Yeah, it can't be soon enough. You know, I hate to keep referencing it, but it's so funny how they parallel each other. Like in 91, Embry's booking, and things start out okay, but I mean, they're not great. We have to move from the Mid-South Coliseum over to the Pipkin building, and that ain't because, you know, they were setting the world on fire, but at least he was doing a little better booking than what we saw in 93. It seemed to be making a little more sense. Then things kind of went off the rails, and we look at the results, and a Monday night card drew less than 400 people, which, I mean, Jarrett would have hung himself in 1985 or 86 or any of those years if it had got that bad. So I don't know if they took the book completely away from Eric Embry, but you can tell Lawler gets involved because Lawler comes back off his injury hiatus immediately. Tagar, Lord of the Volcano shows up, which has Jerry Lawler written all over.
Oh, absolutely, all over.
And then the following week, Eric Embry comes out and is basically pitching Leatherface as if he's actually the character from the movie. He's telling his backstory on Memphis TV like that's the guy that's coming in. They even show a clip from the fucking Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which was surprising. And now he's back to feud with Lawler, and if Lawler can beat him, he'll get 3 minutes with Eric Embry. And it's like, all right, so they've flipped the switch here pretty quick. Things started, changing around. We haven't seen it. They went from that 1 week they had 400, so they had 379, like 426, and then when Lawler came back and we had Leatherface, we jumped up to like 1,000 or 1,100. Okay. So we're trending back up, but I don't know if that means if they took the book completely away from Embry or if they were starting to at least interject, because I know the Gilberts will be leaving pretty soon because he's got Doug running around acting like Roughhouse Fargo. And I take it that's not a favorite part of Doug's career, because I asked him on the podcast last week about how that came about. He started talking and then changed the subject. And I knew I had at least 10 people that had specifically said, hey, can you ask him about that? Because I don't even remember it. I had completely forgotten about it. So I bring it back around, ask the question again. He starts talking, and he spins off in another direction. So I didn't even try a third time. And clearly he didn't want to talk about it, who thought of it or, what it was. But which means to me, I don't necessarily think it was Embry's idea. I think it might have been something. I figured it was something Eddie come up with, because in the sheets, Meltzer referred to it as doing a Rick Steiner gimmick, and I'm figuring Eddie helped Rick develop that. And then on TV, they said that he was like Roughhouse Fargo. So I'm thinking it might have been something Eddie wanted to do, and then it just didn't work, or they didn't stick around long enough for it to get over, and might be why he doesn't want to talk about it. But that's just my speculation.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that's an excellent time period, and it's always fun to get into little things, especially in Memphis, because things are quicker than a hiccup, as Jim Ross would say here. But you never know, like random guys come in and out that we never see again, gimmicks are tried out, and no, yeah, I know you've been working on that in the last few weeks here with Doug and the storylines there in USWA 91, but I'm hoping we get some storylines or gimmicks here real soon in 1985, just something I can, sink my teeth into. I'm hoping it's coming sooner rather than later. But for this week, guys, we are going to wrap things up. Another week of Memphis in the books. We have now made it into July of 1985, heading into the final 6-month stretch of the year. It only took about 46 years for us to get there, but we are there. I will have you know. We'll be back soon with another edition of this and so much more. Encourage everybody to try everything out over at the patreon.com/WrestleCopia. Gene joins me there many a time for the Coliseum Videocast. We cover, Coliseum videos, of course, and we do a lot of other fun things on there. Gene's joined me for various outings on the Patreon as we do the Memphis here. And hopefully maybe Gene will pop up for heading into WrestleMania 5 on the Grenade as well. But, Gene, I want to thank you so much, man, for being here. Anything you want to promote on the way out this week?
The Eddie Gilbert book has been re-released after we had issues with the original publisher. We now have a 30-year anniversary edition that has 2 extra chapters, some extra pictures. It's available on Amazon both as a paperback book and as a Kindle book, ebook. So you can find it. You just go to Amazon and just search Eddie Gilbert book, and it'll pop up. And those are available. And Wolfie D's book is available as a paperback, and it is also available now for Kindle as well. So you can find both of those on Amazon, and you can check out. I've been writing a lot of articles lately, and they've been getting good feedback. If you want to check some of those out, you can go to substack.com/retro wrestling archive.
Very cool. You guys go out and buy those books. Help the man out. Make a little scratch there, and he certainly earned it. With all the pages going into those books and all the hard work at the time. I mean, the years you put into the Eddie Gilbert book, and of course working so closely with Wolfie and putting that one out recently as well. But the Substack stuff, I've been slacker. I haven't read the last guy. I got to get back in there and check out some of the more recent stuff you've done. But I know there's some other people also have Substack accounts. But Gene, I appreciate you taking the time out to educate us on some of the talent that not a lot of people discuss in a lot of topics that it's like, damn, why didn't I think of that? So it's really cool. I'm glad you're able to do that in some of your free time, man, and I'm looking forward to seeing what's coming next with that. And I just got to thank you so much for being here as part of this. It's been a while, like you said, but it's great to be back in the saddle, and we'll be back soon, guys. More regional wrestling around the corner. Thanks a lot, Gene.
Thank you.